everybody, my name's Kim Hargrave and I'm the Education Director here at the Denison Pequotsepos Nature Center. And today we're going to be talking all about feeding our backyard birds during the summertime. A lot of people think that bird feeding kind of ends when the winter ends, and it can. It's absolutely fine for your birds if you don't want to feed in the summertime, but there's a lot of things that you can do for bird feeding in the summer that will attract some different birds than you might see in the wintertime. So if you're up for it, it's really, really fun to do a couple different types of feeding for the summer. And that is our friend Rosie, the pigeon who lives here at the Nature Center. And we like her to get some exercise on her wings, so we let her fly around the room during the day when we don't have classes here at the Nature Center. So she's getting lots of exercise these days. All right, so we're going to start with the one that people are most familiar with, which is feeding our hummingbirds during the summertime. If you don't have your hummingbird feeders out yet, definitely get them out. We usually tell people April 15th to October 15th to have your hummingbird feeders out. That way it helps your resident hummingbirds, the ones that stay with you all summer long, but also helps the ones that are migrating through in the spring and then migrating back through in the fall. So there's a lot of different types of hummingbird feeders. I always prefer hummingbird feeders that have perches. So if you look at these two feeders right here, this one has a little perch right down at the bottom. All right, and this is going to give the hummingbirds a place to sit. I particularly like this type of hummingbird feeder, and it also has a perch for the birds to perch on while they're trying to feed.
And this is one of my favorite feeders as well for hummingbirds.
Yeah, and this is the one I have at my house. And there's a couple other reasons why I like this. One of it is that it has this little trough right here, and you fill this with water, and ants that try to get into your hummingbird feeder, they can't cross the water trough and get into the food. So it just helps with one of the pests from hummingbird feeding.
Kim, can you show the other favorite thing about this is the ease of being able to take this apart?
That's right. And the other really, really important thing about this particular feeder, it's super easy to clean. And we're going to talk about cleaning your hummingbird feeders in just a minute. But this one, the lid pops right off, and it can go in the dishwasher. This unscrews, and it can also, it's just super easy to clean this out. And it's very, very important to clean your hummingbird feeders. So what happens is you put sugar water in your hummingbird feeders. You don't need to go to the store to buy anything. What I do is I take my 2-cup measuring cup, I fill it with 2 cups of water, I heat it up, and I take a 1/2 cup of sugar and put it in, and I dissolve it. And then I let it cool to put in my feeders. Now this feeder takes 1 cup really nicely. I put my other cup in the refrigerator and use it when I need to refill my hummingbird feeders. Now here's the catch with a hummingbird feeder. Super, super important to clean them on a regular basis. Even if your hummingbirds haven't taken all the nectar up that you've made, you still want to change it at least once a week. And that's when the temperature is about what it is now, 60s and low 70s. You need to clean it at least once a week. As it gets warmer and later into the summer, you need to clean your hummingbird feeder much more often. So if the temperature is, about 80, 85 degrees, you want to be cleaning it at least twice a week, if not 3 times. And then once it gets into the high 80s or low 90s, you want to be cleaning it every single day. And this is because that sugar water, mold can develop. That mold can actually kill hummingbirds. So it's very, very important to clean those feeders. We get hummingbirds in every year that have been injured by drinking water that has mold and mildew in it. So make sure you change it on a regular basis. Now the other thing that's important to remember when you make your hummingbird food, there is no reason to put any colored dye in it. Don't put any food coloring in it. All you need is sugar and water. Don't ever buy nectar pre-made that has red food coloring in it either. Hummingbirds are super tiny, and the chemicals that are in that dye can hurt them as well, and it's not necessary. It's not going to attract any more hummingbirds to your feeder. What you notice is the hummingbird feeders themselves usually have some red and some yellow on it. That is enough to get your hummingbirds to your feeder. Now, there's another type of feeder that you might see, and sometimes they're really pretty. They're like glass balls, and they have a straw coming out with a little red tip. And that those work great as well, but it doesn't give the hummingbird a place to sit and rest for a minute while it's drinking. So while it's fine to have some of those, we really recommend having hummingbird feeders with perches.
Right, because they expel so much energy just flying around and doing all that they do. Now, I'm not seeing comments right now, so there's a chance that they're not showing up for us today, as they did not yesterday. But I know a question that we often get asked is, can I use something other than regular sugar to make my hummingbird solution?
I would not use anything but regular granulated white sugar.
Right, so don't use sugar in the raw. I know we had someone ask about agave. Don't use that as well. Those are great for people, but not safe for hummingbirds.
Yes, and you want to do it with a 1-to-4 ratio. So if you only want to make 1 cup of hummingbird food at a time, you can make a 1/4 cup of sugar, 1 cup of water. I always make 2 cups at a time. I'm a little, just like to get it done. I know some people who have multiple hummingbird feeders, and so they're making more. So it's a 1-to-4 ratio. So 1/2 cup of sugar to 2 cups of water, and on up or down from there, depending on your feeder. So like I said before, the feeder like this, well, it's a great feeder. It's just a little more challenging to clean. You'd actually have to get one of those bottle brushes in there to clean a feeder like this.
And sometimes those ports can be a bit of a challenge. This one actually looks pretty good, but I know with the hummingbird feeders that I've tried in the past, some of those ports are a little harder to get into, and separating all those parts. And again, as Kim had mentioned, making sure that there isn't mold that grows in there can be a challenge.
Yeah, and so like I said, this one right here, just super easy, and I don't like to wash dishes. Put it in the dishwasher. It makes my hummingbirds a little mad while it's being cleaned, but it's all good, and they come back an hour later when it all comes out for them. Now, other birds that you can feed during the summertime is these guys right here. And people don't really think about these guys so much because they're seed eaters. This is the rose-breasted grosbeak. Take a look at the size of that beak right there. And that tells you that it is a seed eater. And it doesn't want small seeds. It really likes black oil sunflower. So if you're feeding with a regular platform feeder like this, or a tube feeder during the summertime, you want to put black oil sunflower in it. So black oil sunflower is this right here. You can buy straight black oil sunflower, and it's really going to help out your rose-breasted grosbeaks. And they are a beautiful bird to see during the summertime. And they definitely come to backyard bird feeders.
And the black oil is a softer sunflower seed than the striped sunflower seed, which many people see.
Yeah, so striped sunflower, well, it's a great seed. It's great for blue jays, things like that. And the grosbeaks probably can eat it. This is a much more versatile seed. A lot more birds can eat it. So everything from smaller birds like chickadees and nuthatches to some of our larger birds like blue jays can eat black oil sunflower. So this is the seed that I usually recommend. All right. Now, one other bird that we've heard a lot about this year, and so we were discussing the other day, the staff, was that is there more of them this year, or people are just noticing them more this year around their yards, are Baltimore Orioles. So
These are always a treat to see.
It is. These are beautiful birds with black and orange, and they can be attracted to come to a feeder at your house, but they're not going to want a traditional feeder. They love oranges. This is the thing that they love to eat. And what you can do is some people... Hi, Rosie. You want to visit?
Rosie wanted to check everything out, too. Again, for anyone that's tuning in late, Kim, who is Rosie?
So Rosie is our resident pigeon, and she ended up being found, and we were able to take her in here, and she's wonderful. She loves to fly around, and she helps us to teach people of all ages about bird adaptations. One of the things that she loves, actually, though, is these red grapes, and that's why she's kind of eyeing them, I think, at the moment. All right, so... let me talk a little bit more about Baltimore Orioles. Look how much smaller a Baltimore Oriole is compared to a pigeon. I think that's just an amazing comparison right there. So oranges are really important for Baltimore Orioles. They love the sweetness of them. There's a couple options of what you can do. You can just take them, cut them in half, and stick them on a stick in a branch in a bush near your house. Don't eat those. And that's an easy way to feed the Baltimore Orioles. All right, you can eat one. They're just mealworms. We'll talk about those in a minute.
Rosie is helping us along. Sometimes a good assistant, and sometimes, well, entertaining always.
Yeah. The other thing that you can do is you can put them in a suet feeder. And this just makes, if you don't want to put them closer to your regular bird feeder, you just stick them in your suet feeders. This happens to be a large suet feeder. And the Baltimore Orioles will come by and they can peck them out of here. So that works really well. Also, the other thing that Baltimore Orioles love are red grapes. So they tend to prefer bright color fruit. So red grapes, red cherries, bright colored oranges, all of those fruits are good for Baltimore Orioles. Don't try to do green grapes or anything like that. If it's not bright, they seem not to like it. So even super sweet grapes that are green, they don't go for. They need that brighter color. And that's going to attract Baltimore Orioles to come and visit the feeders near your house. All right. So let's see what Rosie was getting into here a minute ago. She was checking out.
Oh, it seems like she also did not eat the worm she decided to take. She just wanted to check it out.
Check it out. Make sure she wasn't missing anything
Right.
good. So these are actually dried mealworms. And dried mealworms are something that bluebirds like to eat. So if you know you have bluebirds around your house, so I have bluebirds that are near my house. I've noticed them a lot this summer. And so they're flitting back and forth. So they have a nesting site somewhere close to the edge of my yard. And this is a way to attract them so that you can see them a little bit more. You put a dish out, and some people attach it to their feeder, some people just put it on a quiet part of their deck with these dried mealworms. You can also buy live mealworms, that's fine. Dried mealworms just can be a little easier to keep.
They stay where they're supposed to, as
They
opposed
do.
to the live ones.
Ones that tend to wander away. So I put these dried mealworms out, and that attracts the bluebirds to come down and eat. Another thing that I just wanted to mention is feeding suet cakes in the summertime. You do want to be careful with suet cakes, even the commercially prepared ones like this. You want to make sure they're in a shady area so they don't get melty, and you also want to make sure that there is, you're changing them out on a regular basis because you don't want any mold or mildew to come onto those suet cakes. Mold and mildew is very, very dangerous to songbirds, and especially in the summertime. So even feeders like this, tube feeders especially, you want to make sure you're cleaning them out on a regular basis. So at least once a week during the summertime, you know, when they take that feeder, empty it out, make sure there's no mold or mildew in it. Just do a quick scrub down, let it dry before you put the seed in. When a lot of birds get some of that mold and that mildew in their systems, it can cause some trouble for them. And the other thing, it can lead to disease being spread from bird to bird. So we really want to make sure that our feeders are very, very clean during the summertime.
Now, Kim, back to bluebirds, because there was something that not everyone realizes, is that bluebirds are in the same family as robins, correct?
Yes, they are. They're thrushes. And so they, you know, so if you notice that, think about a robin redbreast, well, the bluebird actually has that redbreast as well. All right, now another great reason to kind of keep your feeders up during the summertime is that a lot of birds, you know, they have their young, and they'll actually bring them to your feeders to learn how to forage and how to feed. And it's just really fun to see the parent birds with the young birds. Here at the Nature Center, we often get cardinal families at our feeders, and you'll see them. Remember, when birds first learn to fly, they basically try to fly out of the nest and they land on the ground. And those birds are still being cared for by their parents for many weeks after they actually leave the nest. We call those fledglings. And those fledglings are learning to feed, and they'll sit there, they'll sit underneath the feeder, they'll beg for food from their parents, and their, you know, mom or dad will come by and take a sunflower seed, help them to crack it open, and then feed them. So it's really fun to watch all of those interactions at your bird feeders. Now, depending on where you live, though, you do need to be cautious feeding the birds during the summertime if you have bears. If you have any bears in your area, we don't recommend feeding the birds, especially things like fruits and suet cakes and seeds. Sometimes you can get away with a small hummingbird feeder that's close to your house, but otherwise, if you have bears in your area, you should discontinue feeding while bears are active. The reason why it's okay to feed the birds during the wintertime when you have bears around is because the bears hibernate or are dormant during the winter, so they're less likely to get into your feeders. So, but right here in southeastern Connecticut at the moment, it's fairly safe to feed the birds all year long. So we have one other feeder that I just wanted to mention that's right here. This is a Thistle Feeder, and so it has the tiny little holes and these tiny little seeds. And this is a feeder that really only feeds finches. So think about goldfinches and house finches and purple finches. And the birds will come by and they will eat the thistle seeds right from there. This can be a good thing that if you're having trouble with flocks of blackbirds, things like that, because those bigger birds won't eat the thistle, they won't be encouraged and attracted to your feeders, but you'll still get some of your beautiful finches to eat.
Now, speaking of other big birds that tend to come by that maybe aren't everyone's favorite or can be bullies, or in the case of my father-in-law, that has a lot of grackles that take over because he has a great habitat for them. Are there certain feeders that are helpful? So I know, for instance, the platform feeder right here is one that I use in the wintertime, but then cowbirds tend to be one that I'm trying to dissuade.
So sometimes the easiest thing to do is actually to stop some of the seed feedings during the summer, just for a few weeks, and that'll actually move that whole flock on. The other thing to do is to look at the tube feeders that are encased in cages. You'll see that there's a cage, so smaller birds, chickadees, tufted titmice can get through, but the bigger, larger birds that tend to be bullies, the grackles, things like that, they actually can't get through to that cage. And so they're discouraged as well and are more likely to move on.
And I did hear that the cowbirds are more inclined to feed from a platform feeder, so that's part of why we brought it in.
Yeah.
We did have a tube feeder, but it didn't last all that long due to our squirrels. So, any tips for those that have some rascally squirrels, or as I like to call them, nature's ninjas, because they have core strength that humans would envy for a lifetime?
So the thing about squirrels is you have to be patient with them. You need to remember that we're putting out food that is the same food source that they expect. That's the kind of things they like to eat is what birds like to eat. And so it's not shocking that they come to your feeders. So you need to practice some patience with them. There are a lot of different types of squirrel baffles, things like that. But the biggest things that help is to make sure that your feeders are fairly far away from anything that a squirrel can jump off. So here at the Nature Center, they literally jump off the roof and onto the feeders here. So if you have a squirrel baffle on the top, that'll help discourage them. Baffles that help them from climbing poles tend to help also. However, there's always a few squirrels that figure it out. And once one squirrel has figured out how to get over the baffle, the other squirrels do watch and they learn. And so you'll have to come up with a new strategy. One thing that you can do is you can just say, all right, fine, and feed your squirrels something else. And so
we brought an example today.
An example of these little squirrel logs right here that you can put onto a tree or onto another type of feeder, and the squirrels love that, and that tends to discourage them from going to your feeders and then causing trouble there.
Right. And so there are certain things you can try at home. I know, especially during the wintertime, when it's a little easier and people tend to use a lot of suet, is that you can try the suet cakes that have the hot pepper and whatnot in it. Yep. I must have very spicy squirrels at home because ours seemed absolutely undeterred by that at all. So.
All right. So there's lots of great things that you can do to feed the birds in the summertime. The nice thing is that you get a different group of birds coming to your feeder, so, you don't usually get bluebirds and orioles and grosbeaks and hummingbirds. All those things aren't at your feeders in the summertime, in the wintertime, and they're here for the summer. So it's a great time to try some different types of feeding techniques to get some new birds here. And the other thing just to keep in mind, and the reason why you do things like nectar and mealworms, is some of these birds, since they're only here for the wintertime, they're not always seed eaters, and that's why we try some of these different techniques.
Now, Kim, there's one thing that we didn't cover that we chatted about earlier, and that is with the Baltimore Orioles, another thing that they could try is grape jelly, right?
Oh, that's right. And so they love grape jelly, and one of the things that you do is you can put it on like just a Tupperware lid, a little plastic takeout lid, put a little scoop of grape jelly on it. People put it on the railings to their decks or out by their feeders. And Baltimore Orioles love this. It's not worth trying with strawberry jelly or raspberry jelly or any of those other jellies. It has to be like that dark grape jelly. And that seems to be one of their personal favorite types of food.
And one other thing that people can try at home, as you often say, in order to cultivate birds, that having a water source in your yard is a great way to go.
Yes, it is. So I have a bird bath that I use in my yard, but the catch is, with bird baths, is you get mosquitoes in them in the summertime. And so you need to make sure that you're cleaning them out a couple times a week to really rosy. You need to make sure that you clean them out a few times a week just to make sure you're not breeding mosquitoes right next to your house. So if you look into your bird bath and you see something squirming around and your first thought is tadpole, it's probably not. You can always send me a picture if you want to be double checked, but most likely it's going to be the mosquito larvae that's in there. So just dump it out, give it a quick rinse out. I usually just use a high pressure setting on my hose, rinse it out, refill it, and it's good to go. It's just, you want to, again, just like with bird feeders, you want to make sure you don't have mold or mildew building up in your bird baths. Most birds do need to take drinks, and they love to take baths on hot summer days, so it's a really fun way to watch the birds as well.
And it's nice to watch the evolution over the summer. We're fortunate enough to have a bluebird family that raises their young in our general vicinity every year. And so we get to watch the young also come with the parents and take a bath. And then you get to watch their plumage change over the summer. So having a bird bath can be as equally exciting as having your feeders out.
That's right. And again, if you're in a place where you really shouldn't be feeding the birds, some people live in areas that have, restrictions on bird feeding and things like that. A bird bath is a really nice alternative, and it's just as important for these birds to have a fresh water source as it is for them to have, a little extra food source. Because remember, most of these birds are all very well equipped to finding plenty of food out in the wild, and the feeding that we do is really just supplemental to what they can find.
Thank you, Rosie, for being a great assistant and helping make a mess on the table. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today. We will be coming to you live again tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Tomorrow is Thursday for anyone that has forgotten with our lovely quarantine of what day it is. And Kim, who are we introducing tomorrow? Or maybe we should, who are we introducing tomorrow?
So tomorrow we're really excited. We're going to have Willow, our new screech owl, out for everybody to see and to learn a little bit more about.
All right, wonderful. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today. Again, because we couldn't see your comments posted, if you have questions, feel free to keep posting them in the comments and we will address those with texting. All right, thanks, everybody. Have a great day.